Ana Adonai Hoshiana. Ana Adonai Hatzlichana. Ana Adonai Haneinu Yom Koreinu. Ay ay ay. Haneinu Haneinu Yom Koreinu. Ay ay ay. Haneinu Haneinu Yom Koreinu. Elohei Haruhot Hoshiana. Bochein Levavot Hatzlichana. Goel Chazak Haneinu Yom Koreinu. Ay ay ay. Haneinu Haneinu Yom Koreinu. Ay ay ay. Haneinu Haneinu Yom Koreinu.
Hoshia et amecha, uvarech et nachlatecha, urei, 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 urei menase ad haolam. Hoshia et amecha, uvarech et nachlatecha, ay, 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 urei, 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 urei menase ad haolam. One more time. Hoshia et amecha, uvarech et nachlatecha, urei, 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 urei menase ad haolam. Hoshia et amecha, uvarech et nachlatecha, urei, 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 urei menase ad haolam. David Melech Yisrael, David Melech Yisrael, David Melech Yisrael, Chai v'Kai Semen Tov, Mazel Tov, Yehi lanu l'chol Yisrael, Amen. Semen Tov, Mazel Tov, Yehi lanu l'chol Yisrael, Amen. And on Sukkot and on Simchas Torah and Shmini Atzeret, we should be happy. It says so in the Torah. ושמחת בחגיך והיית אך שמח. 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 One more time. ושמחת בחגיך והיית אך שמח. 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 Ad kan hakafa, whatever number this was assigned to. Vidyantiv.
Dover tzedakot Hoshiana. Hadur bilvusho hatzlichana. Vatik v'chasid haneinu Yom Koreinu, ay, 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 Hanenu, Hanenu, Yom Koreinu, ay, 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 Hanenu, Hanenu, Yom Koreinu.
In the Torah, we are usually alerted to a change in the narrative or an imminent event when a protagonist gets up in the morning, or we're told that it's a certain time of day. For instance, messengers came to Lot in the evening. I've always been interested in these time-based introductions. It's a useful literary tool for setting the scene, changing the dynamic, the progress, or subject of the story. I also believe it can give us a sense of what the person could be thinking or seeing, what their world looks like at that time of day. In the section I was assigned in Bereshit, we are told that Yaakov has left Beersheba for Haran. After all the drama around the birthright and blessing, the Torah literally brings down the curtain. He came upon a certain place and stopped there for the night, for the sun had set. And Yaakov then goes to sleep using a rock for a pillow. In this case, the night and sunset serve as a palate cleanser, a reset of perspective. It's getting dark, so Yaakov must stop, and he seems to be calm, even in the dark in the wilderness. And then a tremendous spectacle. Yaakov has a dream. The Torah describes a sulam, sometimes referred to as a ladder, but depicted in commentaries as a ramp or even a tower. There are angels going up and coming down. It seems to be the stairway to heaven. The rabbis focus a lot of interpretive effort on the sulam. What did it look like, and what was its purpose? And on the angels, who did not seem to have a purpose, but why are they ascending first and then descending? Clearly, they have been on earth and are now going up to heaven. While many sources use the ladder as a metaphor for examples of the positive, of ascending, spiritual growth, Torah study, the revelation at Sinai, they also pair with, and in my opinion not supported by the text, that descending the ladder is a negative and connotes failure or decline. My sense of the ladder is perhaps simplistic, a bridge between real life on earth and the aspirational elements of the covenant. And by bringing it to Yaakov, we learn that this bridge is not only for angels, but for us. Or perhaps the stairway to heaven showed us that heaven, the angels and God, can come to us on earth. But you know, sometimes words have two meanings. The purpose of the dream, however, is not left to our imagination. God stands before Yaakov and reaffirms the covenant that he heard from Yitzchak and the promise of protection of Yaakov and his descendants. The rabbis just marvel at Yaakov's reaction to the dream. Waking from his sleep, Jacob said, "Truly Adonai was in this place, and I did not know it." He was awestruck and said, "How inspiring is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." So back to the sunset and darkness. Sometimes to be astonished and awed, especially if things are complicated, crowded, there are distractions and fear, we need for the sun to set, the curtain to come down, or to close our eyes to allow moments of awe to be revealed.
It's morning. It feels like another good day. I have my family and friends, a job that I love, and a community of faith that grounds me. The people in my life have taught me to trust in love, in service, and something bigger than myself. Then I fell into darkness. It was pitch black. I was pushed. I remember that. I was pushed by those I trusted. I was left in darkness, alone, and with nothing. How could they do this to me? How could those I love and trust leave me in such despair? And then I woke up, my body shaking and my heart pounding. It took me a few minutes to realize that it was just a dream, and yet it felt so real. I was in the pit. It was so dark. I was so dark. There was a time in my life when sadness consumed me, and I didn't know it then, but I can see now that I was Joseph. A family member dies, a lifelong friendship breaks beyond repair, a child suffers, a friend experiences a loss, and I feel powerless. Am I Joseph? The universe betrays me. Those close to me can't help or are suffering too. Like Joseph, I'm pulled from the pit, only to be betrayed again. I'm alive, but the healing is painful, confusing, and I feel just as lost as when it was dark. Recovery is an act of resilience. It is a walk into our pain and helps us reveal our inner strength. I walked into my pain, and I found my inner strength. Recovery can be physical, spiritual, or both. Studying Torah has been a part of my recovery, my resilience. Words written so long ago help me face challenges in my life. These ancestral stories guide me to process my fears, my reality, and my anxiety. Torah has given me a spiritual path, a stronger voice, and the power to embrace and love my own reflection. I am not Joseph. I am me. It is 5781 and another year that I get to meet up with Joseph to see how I am doing. Hag Sameach.
Sach v'yashar Hoshiana Chomel Talim Hatzlichana Tov Mitiv Yom Koreinu, ay ay ay, Anenu, Yom Koreinu, ay ay ay, Anenu, Yom Koreinu.
Exodus, Shmot, chapter 3, verses 1 through 6.
And Moshe was herding the flock of Yitro, his father-in-law, priest of Midian. And he drove the flock into the wilderness, and he came to the mountain of God, to Horeb. And the Lord's messenger appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of the bush. And he saw, and look, the bush was burning with fire, and yet the bush was not consumed. And Moshe thought, let me pray, turn aside, that I may see this great sight, why the bush does not burn up. And the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see. And God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moshe, Moshe. And Moshe said, Hineni, here I am. And God said, come no closer here. Take off your sandals from your feet, from the place you are standing on is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moshe hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God.
Hi, I'm Adina, and this is my poem interpreting the Pasuk, Shemot chapter 24, verse 7. Do then say, it seems weird in a way, but think about the future, a part of our nature. You got us out, we scream and shout. We believe in you, I have no doubt. You can trust us, but please instruct us, for we are lost and must be found. Sason v'simcha, we got the Torah. One simple job, na'aseh v'nishma.
יודע מחשבות הושיענה כביר ונאור הצליחנה לובש צדקות עננו ביום קוראנו איי 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 עננו ביום קוראנו Chag Sameach, everybody. This is the Chorney family. That's Ella Chorney. That's Daniel Chorney.
Chag Sameach.
And we're here to share with you one of our favorite songs for Simchat Torah. We love this holiday, and we love doing the song for Hakafot. And one of our favorite things to do is to dance. And even during the song, you can dance even when you're sitting down. Right, Ella? Or when you're standing up. But you can dance the song when you're sitting down, too. Are you going to show them how it's done? Yes. Here we go. So here's how the song's done. You can be seated, and for the first round, we're just going to lean forward, and we're going to lean back. You ready? I think you can handle it. Vehu, 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 yashmi'enu, yashmi'enu, berachama. Shenit, 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 shenit le'enei kol chai. Hai, 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 shenit, 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 shenit le'enei kol chai. Side to side. Vehu, 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 yashmi'enu, yashmi'enu, berachamav. Shenit, 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 shenit le'enei kol chai. Hai, 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 shenit, 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 shenit le'enei kol chai. Up and down. Vehu, 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 yashmi'enu, yashmi'enu, berachamav. Shenit, 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 shenit le'enei kol chai. Hai, 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 shenit, 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 shenit le'enei kol chai. Around. Vehu, 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 yashmi'enu, yashmi'enu, berachamav. Shenit, 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 shenit le'enei kol chai. Hai, 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 shenit, 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 shenit le'enei kol chai. All together. We're going to put all the moves together. You ready? Vehu, 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 yashmi'enu, yashmi'enu, berachamav. Shenit, 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 shenit le'enei kol chai. Hai, 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 shenit, 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 shenit le'enei kol chai. Wow. Happy Hakafot. Chag Sameach, everybody, from the Chorney family to yours.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Now our own sons, Nadav and Avihu, each took their fire pan, put fire in it, and laid incense on it, and they offered before the Lord an alien fire, which God had not enjoined upon them. And the fire came forth from the Lord and consumed them. Thus they died at the instance of the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, "This is what the Lord meant when he said, 'Through those near to me I shall show myself holy and gain glory before all the people.'" And Aaron was silent. Silent? A time of joy, a time of happiness, the greatest achievement of your life. Slam. It's not. What's around the corner? What's next? Do we ever really have any idea? Are things as good as they seem? Stay in the moment. The moment is everything. From the heights of heaven to the depths of hell. A death that seems unfair, yet has a holy purpose. No one knows for sure, but the reasons are debated. Of course there's a reason, and ultimately a purpose. Still, I don't understand, which doesn't mean a thing. Yet it means everything. Faith, meaning, mystery. How can your greatest moment be also your worst? Can your worst moment also be your most important? Are they mutually exclusive or exclusively mutual? How awesome is God, the layers upon layers of meaning, the depth that we endure. There are 70 faces of the Torah. Always understand the obvious meaning, and yet basic meanings are just that, basic. How do we find joy in hardship? How do we find strength in suffering? How do we move past our greatest pain? Maybe it's our greatest strength.
This is a poem drash on Leviticus chapter 19, Kedoshim Tihiyu. This is a pep talk about your holiness. Child of Israel, you have to be holy because I am holy. That's just how it is. I don't mean that you have to do something special to be holy. What I'm trying to say is that you just are. And sometimes from being comes doing, but not always. Here, go down this path. Move along the earth with purpose or aimlessly. Do it your way in your own timelessness. Remember, the dirt underneath your fingernails is what makes you, you. I am that dirt, and I made that dirt too. Your holiness is evident everywhere, in your spaciness and in your asthma, when you're bossy and when you snore. It can be seen when you are writing an email, when you are overwatering the tomato plants, and when you are bending over to put on your shoes. It is still true that your holiness can be seen when you forgive, exalt, placate, teach, protest, and love. But the thing I most want you to know is that it is not possible for you to not be holy no matter what.
Lecholamim Hoshiana Nahor ve'adir Hatzlichana Somech novelim aneinu V'yom koreinu ay aneinu V'yom koreinu ay aneinu V'yom koreinu.
אז בואו ונשיר אל השמיים, וכל התפילות יאירו לנו את הבית, ונשיר אל השמיים מהמרפסות, עד שנעיר את השכונה. נכון קשה זה לא יהיה לנצח, גם שעצוב זה רק עניין של זמן. יהיה מה שיהיה עוד ננצח, עד שנעבור את הבלגן. נכון אולי הכל קצת ישתגע, רק אהבה תציל את העולם. כי היום שגרה כמי יודע, סופו נעבור את זה כולם. שים לב ילדי המרפסות, תפתחו את החלונות עד שכולם ישמעו את זה ביחד. עוד נהפוך למשפחה, נשנה את השגרה, נחייך וננצח את הפחד. אז בואו ונשיר אל השמיים, וכל התפילות יאירו לנו את הבית, ונשיר אל השמיים מהמרפסות, עד שנעיר את השכונה.
שמחו ושמחו בשמחת תורה, ובנו גדת תורה. שמחו ושמחו בשמחת תורה, ובנו גדת תורה. שמחו ושמחו בשמחת תורה.
In the book of Numbers, in chapter 27, we read the incredibly brief story of the daughters of Zelophehad. Their father dies without sons, and they petition Moshe that they should be the heirs of his inheritance. He takes their case to God, and God finds in their favor, and the law ends up becoming fixed that way. If a man dies without sons, his properties then go to his daughters. It's a beautiful feminist story, one that I grew up with and loved and have cherished all these years. But I was really determined to find something new this year. While the lessons of standing up for what you believe in, women's stories being told in Torah, God bending to the will of humans, and other lessons are timeless, I was hoping to find something to speak to me today in 2020, in this moment. I did some digging, a lot of digging, and found a reference to it in the Talmud. The daughters of Zelophehad are mentioned in Bava Batra on page 119b. Tana. Bnot Zelophehad chachmaniyot hen, dershaniyot hen, tzidkaniyot hen. The daughters of Zelophehad are wise, they are interpreters, and they are righteous. What does this mean? The Gemara carries on to explain why they are these things, and I'm going to take them in reverse order. They are said to be righteous because they didn't rush to marry. They waited for those fit for them. They were interpreters of verses because they named outright that if their father had sons, they wouldn't have spoken. Clearly, they knew what they were talking about. And finally, they are wise. Great, we know that, but what makes them wise according to the Gemara? They are wise because they spoke in accordance with the moment. And when they did so, their case went relatively straight to God. And that, I would say, is our lesson for 2020. With everything going on in the world, this is our time to speak for and to this moment. This is the time to have tough conversations about the challenges facing our country, the time to speak kindly to those that we love because things are really hard. And this is the time to cry out to God, to use our words and the words of our ancestors to plead our case. We have a chance to say, hang on a second, I see the story you've written for us, but come on, really now? This is the time to use our words and to speak for this moment. And maybe, hopefully, like the daughters of Zelophehad, we too will be able to change what has been and what will be. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. I'm Larry Herman. Welcome to our sukkah. My mini drash is on 6 verses in the book of Bamidbar, in Parshat Maseh, that deal with the establishment of cities of refuge, Arim, Arei, Miklat. Since I only have 2 or 3 minutes, I won't even read you the entire set of verses, but rather only the first 5 words of verse 11. V'hikrivtem lachem Arim, Arei, Miklat. You shall set out for yourselves cities of refuge. I find it interesting that although the concept of Ir Miklat is first introduced in the book of Shemot and then further elaborated in the book of Dvarim, it is only in this chapter of Bamidbar that the actual term Miklat is used. We translate Arei Miklat as cities of refuge or towns of asylum, and their purpose in the Torah was very specific, having to do with people accused of involuntary manslaughter. Modern use has adapted the phrase sanctuary cities, which has become a politically fraught concept. But in Israel, a miklat has a similar but more modern definition. It is a secure room or shelter. Nowadays, every residence and building must include a miklat or a merchav mugan to provide a safe place in case of military or terrorist attack. I'm struck that the concept of a miklat, both in the Torah and in modern use, combines the idea of sanctuary or safety through the mechanism of confinement or isolation. Thus, to be free from the threat of harm is accomplished by restricting one's freedom. This is indeed something that we can all relate to today, for the past seven months, and almost certainly going forward for the next several months at least. To be safe and free, we must be confined and restricted. I want to close with a short poem or song that I wrote almost 30 years ago, where my family and I were confined to a miklat, also known as a cheder atum, or a sealed room, during the first Gulf War, as Saddam Hussein shot Scud missiles into Israel, missiles we feared might be carrying chemical warheads. Almost 40 times, Israelis were instructed to take refuge in their cheder atum and to don their gas masks. Oh, cheder atum, my cheder atum, you're becoming my favorite room. When the siren sounds, I grab my mask and seal myself in my cheder atum. Oh, cheder atum, dark cavern of gloom. Brought my phone, but forgot the broom. I fumble with the radio and strain my ears to hear Nachman Shai say, we'll let you out soon. O cheder atum, our temple of doom, where we tremble awaiting the boom. We listen for missiles flying overhead and wonder how long, until we're all dead. O cheder atum, a sodomized womb, where we're praying for Hussein's quick ruin. If I could conjure a wish like Ali Baba, you know that it would be to have a chance to klava. Saddam Hussein in my Cheder tomb. Chag Sameach.
Hoser Talim Hoshiana Potehu Atzil Hatzlichana Tzur Lamim Haneinu V'yom Koreinu Ay Haneinu Haneinu V'yom Koreinu Ay Haneinu Haneinu V'yom Koreinu.
Odi Shama Be'arei Yehuda Uvechutzot Yerushalayim. Odi Shama Be'arei Yehuda Uvechutzot Yerushalayim. Kol sason ve'kol simcha, kol chatan ve'kol kala. Kol sason ve'kol simcha, kol chatan ve'kol kala. Yahasis alayich Elohayich, ki im sos chatan al kala. Yahasis alayich Elohayich, ki im sos chatan al kala. Yasis alayich, yasis alayich Elohayich, kim sos chatan al kala. Yasis alayich, yasis alayich Elohayich, kim sos chatan al kalam. Hallelujah, 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 El Bekodsho, hallelujah, hallelujah, Birkia Uzo. Hallelujah, 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 Vurotav, hallelujah, hallelujah, Kerov Gudlom. Hallelujah, 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 Beteka Shofar, hallelujah, hallelujah, Benevel Bechinor. Hallelujah, 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 Betov Umachol, hallelujah, hallelujah, Beminim Ve'ugav. Hallelujah, 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 Betel Tzalei Shama, hallelujah, hallelujah, Betel Tzalei Truam. Kol hanshama tehalelia, kol hanshama tehalelia, kol hanshama tehalelia, hallelujah, kol hanshama tehalelia, hallelujah. Malchutcha, malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha, bechol dor vador. Malchutcha, malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha, bechol dor vador. Malchutcha, malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha, bechol dor vador. Malchutcha, malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha, bechol dor vador.
It is not in the heavens. V'lo me'ever le'amhi.
and it is not beyond the sea. These two portions of verses in Devarim chapter 30 seem to be straightforward. This thing, Torah, that you yearn for, O Israel, it's not so difficult to attain. Yet what I find so fascinating about these verses is how they have played out over the centuries. In the days of the temple, ascending to the heavens or crossing the sea was quite the feat. Yet today, we can ascend to the heavens on a flight to Israel. We can easily cross the sea, just as many of the original Olim to Israel arrived via ships from around the world. If this is true of our physical world, how much more so about our ability to access the Torah? The question is, how do we get there? One answer comes from a midrash in Devarim Rabbah that compares two different categories of Jews. First, there are the fools. They believe that they can never learn the entire Torah. It's too vast and too much work. Then there are the bright ones. They know that if they study a chapter a day, eventually they will study the whole of the Torah. So that's what we need to do. With much of Torah knowledge accessible on the computer, much of it translated into English, we have even less excuse when it comes to the accessibility of the Torah. And while time is still a limited commodity, if we break up our study into manageable parts, a page of Talmud or a chapter of Torah a day, it's no longer as crazy of a notion. That's also the lesson for our time, for all of the seemingly impossible tasks we face. When things seem so intense, when we have more to do than ever and less time to do it, we must move forward one step at a time. We take on our Rosh Hashanah resolutions one step at a time. We fight against COVID one step at a time. And together, whether it's in the heavens, across the sea, or even in our hearts, we find a way to do it. It's far more than the American way. It's the Jewish way.
1, 2. העדותי בכם היום את השמיים ואת הארץ החיים והמוות נתתי לפניך הברכה והקללה ובחרת בחיים למען תחיה אתה וזרעך
Kadosh v'norah Hoshiana Rachum v'chanun hatzlicha na Shomer abrit aneinu V'yom koreinu Hay 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 aneinu Hanenu, Yom Koreinu, ay, 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 Hanenu, Yom Koreinu. Tomech Tamimim, Hoshiana. Takif Lahad Hatzlichana Samim Masav Hanenu V'yom Koreinu ay 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 Hanenu, V'yom Koreinu, ay, 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 Hanenu, V'yom Koreinu.
Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Hey! Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Moshe. Hey! Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Moshe. Break! What is the bartender's favorite Jewish holiday? Purim!
Okay, what next? Do you want to do 2 slaps? 2 slaps. Do you think? 2 slaps.
2 slaps, 2 claps, 2 of these, 2 of those, and a bin, and a bomb, and a Carmen Miranda. 2 slaps, 2 claps, 2 of these, 2 of those, and a bin, and a bomb, and a Carmen Miranda.
Here we go.
David, Melech Yisrael, Chai, Chai, Bekayah, David Melech
Yisrael, Chai, Chai, Bekayah, David Melech Yisrael, Chai, Chai, Bekayah, David Melech Yisrael, Chai, Chai, Bekayah, David Melech Yisrael, Chai, Chai, Bekayah, David Melech Yisrael, Chai, Chai, Bekayah.
Jump break! Knock, knock. Who's there? Bar. Bar who? Please rise for the bar who?
Anything else?
Nope!
Chag
Chag
Sameach!
Hello, it's me, Ella Zorni, and I am excited for Simchat Torah. I want to say a song. And here it goes, my favorite, Torah. Torah, 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 Siva, Anu Mose, Torah, 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 Siva, Anu Mose. How I love my Torah. Teach me more, please, more. It's our present from Hashem, and it's our Mesorah. Torah Sivat Lanu Moshe. Well, that was great. I'm very excited for Simchat Torah. Simchat Torah is the only time we get to go back to the start of the Torah. And Simchat Torah is the greatest time. So I want to wish you all a great Simchat Torah.